Well, hey there, Mama, and welcome back to the Moms Overcoming Overwhelm podcast, episode number 228. I'm Emily McDermott, and I am here beside you on this journey as we work together to declutter your home, head, and heart. Many of us, especially if you have kids, we have quote unquote generous loved ones, grandparents who want to give the kids gifts all the time. And you may not have the space for all the gifts they want to give, or perhaps you are just overwhelmed or your kids are overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that they have. So how do you navigate that conversation? Well, today I have Khrystyne Jaspers on the podcast, and she is a mom of two. And she, her husband, and her two kids live in a one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan in New York City. Yes, you heard that correct. So she is very knowledgeable about navigating life in a small space. And today we are talking about all things gift giving. She has a consumable gift guide as well as an experiential gift guide, which I will link in the show notes. And she has so much information to share, a lot of great scripts that you can use when you're talking to your loved ones. And Khrystyne has spent her entire adult life in one-bedroom apartments around the world. She is a small space coach who has taught thousands on the art of mindful living and how to uncover possibility and sustainability no matter the size of your home. I do want to mention, in case anyone is listening with kiddos in the car, we do have a conversation about Santa when it comes to gift giving, so I just wanted to give you a heads up about that. But I know this is going to be a really helpful conversation for you. And again, make sure you check out Khrystyne's guides that are going to be linked in the show notes. It'll really help open up that conversation, especially with loved ones that might always be bringing stuff maybe from the dollar store or Target, and you want to just kind of open their minds to some other possibilities when it comes to showing love to your kids. So grab the notebook and pen and let's dive into today's episode with Khrystyne Jaspers. Hey Mama, are you tired of your cluttered home and mile-long to-do lists but are too overwhelmed to know where to start? Do you lack the time and motivation and don't think you'll ever conquer the clutter? You're in the right place. I'm Emily, wife, boy mom, and declutter coach who has overcome the overwhelm in my own life through decluttering and simplifying. I believe every mom deserves the peace that comes from a clutter-free home. Ready to get your life back? Let's declutter your home, head, and heart together. Hi, Khrystyne. Thank you so much for coming on the Moms Overcoming Overwhelm podcast. I am thrilled to chat with you today.
Thank you so much for having Emily. I'm so excited for this.
You have been on my list to chat with for a while because I keep crossing paths with you. And these are words I'm like, I need to talk to Khrystyne. I need to talk to Khrystyne. Because first of all, if you're listening on audio, we're going to give you all the links for Khrystyne's stuff. She is like the most adorable person on earth. I'm not even kidding. She is so cute. Oh my gosh. So maybe you're like offended that I just called you cute. But she's so adorable. But more important than that, she is like so kind and so giving. And oh my gosh, like I said, you've just been on my list for a while. So thank you for coming. And I would love it if we could start with you introducing yourself and your family, kind of how you serve women or families, and maybe one thing you like to do for fun.
Yeah, so I just feel so honored to be here. I know we were together on the Chaos to Calm Summit,
Yeah.
and just I made so many really lovely friendships through that. And so this is just like another one. It's been almost a year, but it's just been such a cool thing. And so thank you so much for having me. So I live in Manhattan with my family. We have two kids, they're 7 and 4. And my claim to fame is that we bought a one-bedroom apartment when I was pregnant with my second child. It was during COVID, and it was just kind of like this miracle. We're both in education, so we really believed like staying in New York City, being in education, choosing to take a step back in my career to be with our kids when they're young. It's not really that not helpful in New York City when everything is so expensive, and so we kind of just stumbled into this opportunity when people were fleeing to be able to buy this one-bedroom apartment. And So a lot of what I do in my journey to help people is to imagine abundance with less and to not kind of get out of this scarcity of like, oh my goodness, I only have this much to, wow, I get to do this because I've chosen this. So I help a lot of families just with organizing, but also really the mindset of I've chosen to live with less, and this is why it matters, and this is what I'm creating for myself through that choice. And then something I do for fun. I mean, sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's not fun. I do run. I probably shouldn't say this here, but I'm going to because I believe in saying things that scare you out into the void so that you do it. But I am hopefully going to be running the New York City Marathon next year. I've never run a marathon. My husband is a crazy runner, and I was just cheering for it this past weekend. And I'm like, okay, I got to do this. I got to do this. So I do love to run, and I think a lot when I run and I process. And it's also just helped a lot with just my gratitude and abundance and endurance. Yeah, so I run.
Um,
But
I
sometimes it's not that much fun.
I love that. So, fun fact, I, in my early 20s, lived in Manhattan for about a year and a half, and I worked at a nonprofit. I had no money. I was in a two-bedroom apartment, but mine was the size of a closet, but didn't have a closet. And I did team and training, team for training, team and training that supports the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and I did the Westchester Triathlon. So my social life, because I couldn't afford to do anything, was swimming, biking, and running to train for this triathlon, and didn't really do it after my mid 20s because it was a little bit much. But I very much appreciate the going to Central Park and like running and just like it's so gorgeous, or maybe not even just Central Park, but that was a time in my life I fondly remember just for being able to do that. So I think that's amazing that you're going to be training. And yes, we are cheering you on already for your
Yes,
training.
stay tuned.
Okay, so, well, living in a one-bedroom apartment with two young children. Mine are 7 and 9, and I will say over the course of my motherhood, I have very much needed to be able to escape somewhere to my cry closet to cry.
Cheers.
And I don't know how you escape. And so I'm curious, like, and it doesn't have to be that, but if there was a time in your motherhood when you were overwhelmed and maybe the challenge was we're all together in this small space and the kids are fighting and it's driving me nuts, or maybe it was something else. But I'm just curious if you could tell us about an example of that, kind of what was going on. And the podcast is Moms Overcoming Overwhelm. So just curious, like, what you were able to do and to change to be able to kind of get through it.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you a quick thing before I tell you my story of being overwhelmed, because I think finding space in our home is real. And my kids have learned to say, I need space from a very young age. And my son, when he needs space, he goes and he sits in our laundry hamper.
I love that.
He just hides in there and he's like, I just need space, Mom. I'm like, okay, you have your space in there. It's kind of like a little womb around. But I think that's 100% real. And honestly, running is huge for that because that's where I can just really, and my husband and I will both tell each other, like, okay, you need to go for a run. Just, I got it. Go run. It's okay. So I think recognizing that in each other is so helpful. But actually, the time when you sent this question, I was thinking about it. And the time that I remember feeling the most overwhelmed was when I actually just had my son. I was in education. And so I was the main income provider when my son was born. My husband was trying to look for a better job. His insurance was so terrible. I had the good insurance, I had the reliable insurance. So I had to go back to teaching. And of course, it was a blessing that my maternity leave like went through the summer. But the night I went back to teaching, he hit that 4-month sleep regression. He stopped sleeping. And I taught first graders. So if you don't, kindergarten, first graders, they're like little aliens. They need lots of support. I was pumping. And the first week of school, my co-teacher fell and broke her ankle. So I didn't have the support. And then on top of all of that, we decided we had to move apartments. So we were moving. Like the first day of school, we moved. My husband took off work. My mom came, which was such a blessing. And they moved while I was teaching my first day. And when you're moving in a small space, the thing that you don't always realize is the more you pack, the less space you have to live. And we have this really cute video of my son and my husband just like cuddling up in this one little spot to read a book that last night because it was just boxes everywhere and furniture. And I came home that first, I think it was the first or second day. I came home, nothing was where it should be. I'm a very like, want to do it myself, put things away, and everything was just in boxes in this new apartment. I was tired. I had been stressed because I couldn't get enough milk pumping. I wasn't getting enough water because I was literally teaching. Like there was no time to drink water or eat, which is so key to pumping is making sure you're nourished. There were no times that were good for pumping because my co-teacher was injured and I just came home and I remember laying on my bed and it was full of clothes and hangers and I just like started crying and my mom was there and she came and she rubbed my back and she's like, it's okay. And I said, I can't do this. I can't be responsible for all these humans. Like right now, I can't do this. And she said something that was so helpful. And she said, Khrystyne, you're not a bad mom you're going to give him formula. Like you're not a bad mom. You have to be willing to take steps forward and know that you can't do all these things at the same time. And I was like, I'm gonna call my principal. And I'm not that kind of person. Usually I just like take it and like deal with it. But she gave me the courage to call and advocate and just say, listen, like if we can't figure out a way for someone to cover me so I can pump, I cannot work here. Like I cannot do this job. I need these breaks. I need this support so I can help this 4 month old that I just had. And it was such a low moment, but it was such an important lesson of just advocating and being willing to see what can change in certain moments of stress and being willing to give up my ideal of what I thought I needed and to really speak up and ask, okay, like this is what I need in this moment to make this happen. And it ended up they found a person, they brought another person into my classroom who could be there just while I pumped. They made sure like all my teaching friends were like, are you drinking water? Are you eating? They'd bring food to my classroom and ended up being a really special year. But it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't like told them like I need help, a lot of help right now, please.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I exclusively pumped with my oldest, so I definitely I definitely feel that as far as like it's like a full-time job to do that. And I know that a lot of times sometimes we hold ourselves to like the certain ideal. Like it's not necessarily that anyone is telling us like you have to do this, you have to do all these things, but we just are like, well, I'm capable, I can do it, and then it's usually, at least in my experience, it is like that breaking point where you're like, No, like I actually can't. And to be able to recognize that and to advocate for yourself is sometimes hard. Like for me, it's usually been people in authority, like, well, they know what they're doing. And so I'm not going to speak to my boss or I'm not going to do this because I can figure it out. Like I can handle it. But I think just recognizing that it's okay to know that you can't do it all and to say it out loud and to actually have others being able to rally around you because a lot of times we think that they should know. Like my husband should just know that I'm miserable. Like, whoever, my boss should just know that this isn't working for me. But a lot of times people are so wrapped up in their own stuff, they don't know. So you have to actually like have the courage to be able to speak up. And then people are a lot of times more helpful and responsive than you ever imagined. So I'm really glad that that ended up getting resolved for you.
Yeah, I think we often play guess what's in my head, and then we get upset and angry when they don't guess correctly what we're going through. And I can be very much that way with my husband too. I'm like, you should know, you should just know how I feel. And so I'm really thankful for that time in my life. It was definitely one of the most stressful times as from being a mother, but I did learn like if I have to articulate like this is a problem and it's not working if I want someone to help me change it.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited because we're talking about gift giving today. It is one of the questions I get most often. And normally it has to do with the generous, air quotes, relatives, generous relatives that are just bringing all of this stuff, especially to our kids. I mean, sometimes to us, but mostly to the kids, or they maybe show love through giving things. And there can be some nuances to the relationships because perhaps it's our mother-in-law. And so we want our husband to be able to say something to said mother-in-law, but like he doesn't really want to say anything. And so
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
are in a special situation because living in a very small space to compared to some, then you have to make these decisions and have these conversations a lot earlier than others would. So I would love it if you can just tell us either kind of what's worked for you or what you recommend to the families that you work with. How do we start to approach some of these conversations when it comes to our loved ones so we don't end up with all the stuff in our home that we have to manage and then feel guilty because we don't want to get rid of it because it was given to us? Just a real simple question for you, Khrystyne.
No, I was talking with someone else about this. I think it was Deanna, but I feel blessed that my children were born. My son was born into a 400 square foot apartment. And so I think a lot of the struggle that I see women going through is the changes that they want to make come after they've had all these habits, right? And this the rolling in of the stuff has been for years, right? And so I feel very blessed. Which is so funny because when I found out we had to have him in such a small space, I was so upset about it. But perspective and time has allowed me to see, wow, that was actually so beneficial. But it forced me to begin having conversations very early before they turned one and before the toys started coming in. I realized, oh, like this is real because he's not even born yet and all this stuff is already coming into my home that there's not really a space for. And I think something that people can miss, and that's the first thing I always tell people, is start with kindness and start with assuming the best. And especially if it's your in-laws, because maybe we have more generosity and kindness towards our own parents, but when it's someone else's parents, we don't have as much. And assuming they are doing this because they want to love my child. And that is a gift that they care so much that they want to give. Maybe there's things in their past of when they were raising their kids that they didn't get to give and they feel like this is their chance, right? And so I think starting with this mindset of gratitude and coming to the conversation with thank you so much for wanting to love my child, like that means so much to me. And it's so powerful that you love them, and I'm so glad there's people who love them in their lives. And then I think just being honest about your own journey. When we were in this 400 square foot apartment and I was looking through this baby registry stuff, and I remember talking to my mom and I said to her, Mom, I need a stroller and I need a crib and money for diapers. But if I have more stuff, I'm gonna go crazy. It's my house is going to explode. And just having a real honest conversation. And that would look different if you have a bigger house. For someone with a bigger house, it might just being open and vulnerable with, hey, I'm finding myself where I'm so stressed by managing the stuff in my home that I can't really focus on my kids in the way I want to. Your grandkids, right? And will you come along with me on this journey? I believe there's freedom in having less, and I want you to come along with me. Will you be open to things that maybe I can suggest or the way that we want to do gifts moving forward? I think just being transparent about your own journey and again, not guess what's in my head, but just being honest about that is really important to begin with. I do have some suggestions too, but did you want to say anything to that at all?
Yeah, I think that that's definitely in line with what I've recommended to people because so for the people that I usually come across, it's not so much the physical space that they can say like I really don't have the space because a lot of them do. It's just more being able to share how the stuff is impacting them. So, like the stress or just I don't have time to manage it or my kids, your grandchildren, they can't keep their room neat and tidy and they get overwhelmed by the stuff in their own room. Like they're getting overwhelmed too. And so being able to have those conversations is just, it's hard, like you said. And sometimes we might need to recruit whoever has sort of the better or the more, I don't know how to put this. I would say more natural relationship, like you said, like parent versus in-law and just come from the perspective of our health and well-being and our values also as a family. Like we value experiences, we value being able to spend time doing what we love in our homes and not having to pick up all the time. I think sometimes if you can bring it back to your health and your values and that sort of thing, people can't argue with that. People can't be like, well, that's not legitimate that you value adventure, so you want to have money go towards some sort of experience. So yeah, I think that that's all definitely on point and totally, yes, what I recommend too.
Yeah, and I think again, being gracious is so important. And if you, like I said, for me, it began early. But let's say like you didn't have this type of mindset beginning and your house is overwhelming and you feel like it's cluttered and you don't know how to control it. You're starting something new. And so just like you need time in that process to build those habits, the people that you're bringing along with you also need that time. And we
Right.
have to be willing to give it to them. And something really practical that's helped me is I just know my mom really likes that immediate reaction of joy when the kids open the gifts. And I'm not anti-toys. I'm just pretty picky about which toys we keep. Um, and I've helped the kids to kind of recognize that along the way too. But I something to kind of help bridge that and give that to them is I will let my mom buy the toy for Christmas. Like I will take the fall as the parent with the boring gifts and like not gifting toys because I know, okay, she really wants that joy. She wants to see that, oh my goodness, you got me this toy excitement, right? Which is normal. And so even just simple things like that, like working with them in that process, giving them ideas of specific types of toys that you think could be really beneficial and why. Like, oh my goodness, they really love these magnet tiles. I think this would make them so happy. Like helping them understanding that need to want them to be happy and working with them in that process. And then something else I've helped my mom and she's gotten really good at this is we have been doing more experiences. So letting them pick out something small that the kids can unwrap with the experience. So for example, last year I asked them, can you gift us a membership to our local zoo? And so she did, and she got them some like little animal figurines that they got to open. So I think that those like little bridge gaps can help with like there's actually like a tangible thing and there's joy when the kid gets to open it. But the biggest part of the gift is something bigger and it's that experience. That's been really helpful for us and our family.
I really like that idea. I've never heard of that as far as like having something small to kind of accompany the experience. I'm thinking, I've thought before about, oh, maybe we do like a membership to the trampoline park or like swim lessons. And like, oh, we could have like trampoline socks or like goggles or something like that. So it's kind of like a almost also like a mystery, like, oh, what does this mean? This is something that we get to do. What could that be? And it's like, oh, we get to jump on the trampoline, you know? So I think that's kind of a really cool idea because a lot of times if you just had a kid open like a gift certificate paper, they're like, what is this? You know? So I really like that idea. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, again, I know we'll talk about this later. That's why I honestly created like the experiential gift guide and now the consumable one is how do you make these things that are boring to kids or seem boring to the gift giver? How can you put the joy of actually getting that gift back into it? Um, and then bring people along in that process because that is tricky, right? Because no one wants to open a piece of paper that says you get this. That's not fun. So I think getting creative with it, like for example, it's free to skate at Bryant Park here in the city if you have your own skates. And so for our children, I just thrifted, and I have to do it this year because they outgrew it. I just thrifted them their skates. The tickets to skate were actually free, but I think kind of just blending experience with actual tangible things for them to get excited can be really helpful. And then it's like, oh, we have this now, but we also have this to look forward to. And it is a little bit of a delayed gratification when you gift experiences. And I think we have to, as parents, and I've written about this a lot, we have to create space for a kid to be like, oh, this doesn't seem that exciting right now, but then reminding them, remember, this is the gift. Like, this is what you got. Like, when you're actually having that
Yeah.
experience, helping them make those connections. And it's been 7 years, but now my son is, hey, like, I really want this experience. Can we do this as a gift? Like, he's asking for experiences, but it didn't just happen. It was definitely like helping him and building that muscle along the way.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention from what you said is that my husband and I do something similar as far as like toys versus other things. And also, when it comes to the man in the red suit, we typically will only do like maybe one, maybe two things. I honestly would be happy if it was zero, but we really minimize the like Santa gifts because it's just like we don't need like 50 things from Santa and then 50 things from the grandparents. So normally we have maybe one kind of family gift. So for example, ours was kind of physical but also experience. We did a foosball table. That's like a big foosball table in our basement that my husband put together. And then when they got back from visiting relatives, it was like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting. But that was like the one gift from mom and dad, and then I can't remember Santa, it was like one or two things. And honestly, my kids are never like, why is Santa so stingy? Like, why didn't Santa get me more stuff? Because they don't care who it's from.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, okay, great. Well, I got these gifts. So I definitely understanding, for example, my mother-in-law is more like, I want to see them open it. So she can have that joy. I'm happy getting clothes or, a couple books or whatever. And if they're bored by what we got them, I really don't care. So I really appreciate that you said that too, because it's understanding the preferences of the family members. And then we can kind of be more flexible around that. And there's no requirement that there has to be a certain number of gifts from Santa or a certain number of gifts from us. And in my experience, at least, the kids are not like, why? And if for some reason they said, I noticed we didn't get like a lot from you, mom and dad, this year. Oh, well, that's because we're going skating, or, that's because we're doing this. And then you can kind of equate it to more the experience that's happening. And they're like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. I mean, most kids are not. My kids do this with candy, but they don't do it with gifts, where they have like the candy math. They're like, well, one pop, one lollipop equals two Tootsie Roll. They don't usually do it that with gifts. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, they can kind of get it. And you can then generally like start paring down holiday to holiday. And so then the expectation isn't that they're getting like 50 things.
And when you were talking, I thought of, I need to put like, I need to just like name it this, like the Dudley syndrome, like in Harry Potter 1, when he's like, but it was only 28 presents and it was 29 last year. Like, kids aren't doing that. If they are doing that, the problem is not a gift. It's a mindset of gratitude. And what I like to help people realize is this is a privilege. Kids don't just naturally one experiences. Like, as humans, we are very connected to marketing. I know our friend Amy just did this whole thing about marketing. Like, marketing works because they know what they're doing, right? And it's the same with kids. And as parents, we get this privilege to walk alongside them. And like, I know you had mentioned like dollar store finds, like when your mother-in-law brings all the dollar store toys. We have started to just talk, we early on having conversations about, okay, this is a forever gift and this is like a few days gift, and what's the difference? Oh, and they can recognize now, oh, that broke in 2 seconds versus this I've been playing with for many years and I'm still enjoying it. And those are gifts. Like, we get to give them those conversations and give them that language. And it doesn't just happen. It's not just like someone someone was saying the other day, oh, someday they'll decide they know how to make their bed. They'll decide that they want to make their bed. I'm like, no, I don't think so. Like, those are things that we get to teach them and we get to help them learn and grow in. And I maybe it's the teacher in me, maybe it's just the mom in me. I think that's a privilege that I get to come alongside my kids and help them see and help them experience and also just open their eyes. We live in New York City. We walk past homeless people every day, like opening their eyes to, okay, you have a coat, like you have shoes. Your brain is healthy and you can make like good decisions. Like, these are gifts. This is wealth. And just having those conversations with them too, I think is such a powerful thing. And if you find yourself where you've just started making these decisions, where for yourself, realizing, oh, this is a gift that I'm giving myself, but I also get to give it to my kids. So that maybe when they're in my shoes, they don't have to do all this backward work. Like they can start with this slate of not counting or not feeling like more is more, you know?
Yeah, and also just like you said, it's all these opportunities to kind of teach them and to kind of really get them to think about things like, oh, well, why did that fall apart so quickly? Well, it's not really well made. So if we have a choice whether we're going to pick a toy like this or we're going to pick a toy like this, we're going to make a different choice. And so they can start learning some of those things. I am curious when we're talking kind of like the dollar store finds. Did in your experience, did you ever have, again, air quotes, generous relatives, bringing things just because they're coming over? Like one thing I hope never happens with my children is that they have a relative or they have a loved one come and they say, "What did you bring me?" As like the first thing out of their mouths. And so far that hasn't happened. But I know a lot of families where that is happening, where it's like because they have the expectation because grandma always brings something, but then grandma feels like, well, I have to keep bringing something because they keep saying, what did you bring me? So it's sort of like this vicious cycle. And I'm curious, we are very adamant about like, okay, gift giving in our house is birthday, Christmas. Birthday, Christmas. Those are the two times. If you want something that is not your birthday or Christmas, we put it on a list and then we're going to have it for those things. We do not get things just because. Like that just doesn't really happen. So I'm curious for like those in between times where it can get a little bit nefarious, I guess, with like people bringing stuff all the time. Have you experienced that, or what are your recommendations? Because I'm sorry, I feel like I keep asking a question really, really long. It's easy to say, like, okay, for Christmas, like we just want to do gifts this way, or for the birthday, we want to do it this way. But when people are bringing all this stuff in between, it's kind of like, oh, like, how do you have those conversations?
Yeah, my mom is so funny. And I think again, I've tried because this does happen to me and my kids have said like, "Oh, like what did you bring us this time?" I'm like, "This is your fault because you always bring something." Um, my parents don't live close. They live in Colorado. So when they come, it's like a big deal. Like, oh, mama, like Lolly and Baba are coming. And sometimes we don't spend the holidays with them. So I think part of it is just I know my mom and I know she's very generous and she loves giving gifts. We've had conversations around the types of gifts. So she's moved from like the cheap stuff to consumable, like, oh, a special treat, or here's like something to replace something else. Like, so she's definitely gotten better about like, oh, this is something, or my in-laws would come and they'd bring a kite that we could go to the park and fly together. So I think kind of recognizing where you are and then just taking small steps the other direction of like it might be too much to be like, don't bring anything, right? They may not be ready for that versus, oh, like if you come, I think it'd be really special for you to bring some bubbles and we can go to the park and we can use them when we go, right? And like giving them examples of this is practical or this will be enjoyed while you're here with the kids. Like how can we enhance
Mhm.
the experience that you have with the kids when they come? And so and my mom, the more I've been open to, oh, the kids really like this, or they really like, for example, the thing that they brought for my son this past time was a tube for his Ghostbuster costume. Like that was really special. That was what he needed for his costume. And so just kind of helping them see you can have this love of gifts, but practical things are really helpful. We appreciate that so much. Like, oh, you brought us diapers. Like, thank you. Like, this is like I think kind of helping move that, like this is practical. It's not that we don't like stuff, it's just that we're very particular about what has a space in our home, right? And in my house, especially because my mom gifted me this beautiful lamp, and I felt so bad because she knew I loved this lamp. But the one she gave me could only sit flat on a surface, and I just don't even have a surface where it could sit by a plug. And so it was just a conversation. Mom, thank you so much. I mean so much that you thought of me. I have to send it back because I really just don't have a surface where it could fit with a next to a plug. And she understood that. And so I think for me, it just goes back to being gracious, but also just being honest. Like there really is no surface for this.
Yeah.
Or you have a surface, just be like, I'm so sorry. Like I appreciate you thinking of me. I need to return it because there is no place where I'm not gonna, I can't put this in my home, or, I'm not sure exactly how you navigate that when you have a lot of space. But,
Yeah,
being
it
honest.
is. I think then probably you go back to the like managing stuff
Yeah.
conversation. Yeah, more like your values. But I really love that idea about having something like consumable or practical that's going to be used while they're visiting. And I feel like my mother-in-law and even my parents have done that in the past with like crafts or so if they come for Easter, for example, they're going to bring like Easter egg dyeing kit, so it's to support an activity that's going to happen with the kids. So I think that that's a really good idea. And then I love the focus on consumables because sometimes I feel like, especially with kids, when we think of consumables, it's like, oh, well, it has to be something they eat, or something like that. But even like you were saying, the bubbles, I mean, like the bubbles are something that you use up, like it is a consumable, or even some of the like craft supplies or art supplies, like those might be a project. Are there any other kind of like consumable gifts specifically for kids that aren't necessarily food? That I didn't prep you for this, but but that
No.
you can think of that is like, yeah, not food, but maybe more in the realm of like the bubbles or some sort of like experience that they're going to have.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I just wrote this consumable gift guide. You literally just said the definition. The definition I use to create the guide is consumable is, yes, like you can use it, but it's also something that is used like frequently, used up. So something could not be like, I'm not actually physically eating it, but it's consumable because every single day I'm using it, right? That's a consumed item. And so I thought that was so funny. You literally just like word for word use my definition, which I love. I'm trying to think. So kites have been really fun. Just like my father-in-law is like the kite king. The kids love flying kites with him. Chalk. Sometimes my in-laws would bring like an outdoor game and then they would just take it home and keep it for when they come to visit. That's always been helpful of like, oh, like we're gonna bring it to enjoy with you here and then we'll keep it at our house for you when you come to visit has been helpful. Paper airplanes, any kinds of crafts. I'm trying to think. Play-Doh can be fun. Yeah. And then another thing that I like to do is if my parents or my in-laws gift an experience, I always send them lots of pictures of joy, like, look how much fun we're having on this experience. And then if it's possible, I will invite them to come. So like with the zoo membership, I was like, hey, you guys are in town. You guys, the zoo membership. Can we take you to the zoo? Like having them come with the kids, or a fun idea might be like a Polaroid, like have them bring like a camera, like the kids can take pictures together, or they can send the pictures to their grandparents. Just thinking of ways to bring them along, because I think, at least for my mom, it's like I don't want to just gift you money that just gets put in the bank. Like I want to love you through this gift. And I get that because I'm also a gift giver. And so I've tried to just bring her along, like, look how much fun. Oh, we're doing it again. We're at the zoo again. Thank you again for this gift. Like, whatever that might be, has been really helpful.
Yeah. Oh, I love all of those. And yeah, taking the photos, especially during the experience, because this time around we're recording this before the holidays, but my mother-in-law did text us just yesterday saying, "What if we just deposited money in your accounts and then you decide like essentially what gifts we're giving?" Which I was a little bit surprised, but I'm like, okay. But I think that we might do something like that. Like if she's allowing us to have discretion, then we're probably going to do more experience heavy stuff and to just have like all the photos or even when they visit, like you said, like waiting till they visit to kind of have that experience with them. That's a really great idea. Okay, I have one more question before
I
we
have
wrap
another
up.
one.
Oh, you
There's
do? Okay, good. Please.
nail polish. Like they could do like nail polish with the kids if you have girls, things like that. A ball to go out and throw with the kid. Like, sorry, just
No,
came to me.
well, it's funny being boy mom times two. I'm like nail polish. Like,
It's great.
I know it's totally not in my brain, but yes, definitely for the ball, for
Tattoos,
sure.
stickers.
Stickers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Well, before we tell everyone about the consumable gift guide and how to connect with you, I do have one more question, which is the guilt of getting rid of a gift. Okay, so we've talked about the graciousness in which we received the gift, but then when we have the gift, a lot of people think, I can't get rid of that because it was a gift. So how have you navigated that either for yourself or with children? Because you have more stuff coming in, obviously. So have you taken photos of things? Like, how have you dealt with that issue?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for myself, um, give yourself permission for maybe right in that moment you're not ready to pass it on, but to continue revisiting it and continue coming back to it. Okay, am I ready? I just did this. My mom for my wedding gifted me a cookbook. I had a little note in it. And I mean, I've been married for 13 years. So for 13 years, I've used that one recipe in that cookbook. And for 13 years, I have not been able to pass it on because I felt like I was dishonoring her memory by moving it out of the house. And I was writing the consumable guide about cookbooks, and I was like, okay, Khrystyn, you need to practice what you preach if you're going to write this. And you've used one recipe, and that was years ago. Maybe you need to, it's time to pass this on. And I did, I passed it on. And then she came to visit. I'm like, Mom, I have to tell you, I passed this cookbook on. She's like, oh, I'm so glad you did it. You weren't using it. That's great. And it was a good reminder of sometimes you're not ready, but you need to keep coming back and keep evaluating, like having those rhythms of evaluation. And then also we build this story up in our head about what it means that we pass it on that that person may or may never ever have or think or feel. And so just being open to that. And my mother-in-law actually just passed away in March. And I think Shannon Lako, who is a friend of ours, but she had said something similar when her mom passed. You realize when someone dies, how nothing that they gave you can replace having them, right? And I thought that when she passed away, I would feel more like nostalgic and want to hold on. But I realized in that void, oh, like I can hold on to this, but it doesn't bring her back and it doesn't replace her. And there are certain things like little notes that she wrote that do feel that way. But then there's other stuff that she just gifted that doesn't feel that way. And so I think sometimes when you are hit up against the wall and the loss, you realize I've made this whole castle in my head of what these things mean, and it doesn't really feel that way. And then as far as with the kids, I just we purge frequently. We have conversations often. I talk to them with them. So like if the toy bins get crazy, well, I'll sit there while they're playing. I'm like, okay, we're gonna go through stuff. Is there something in here that you'd like to pass on to someone else? We just have regular conversations. And I've never had them say, oh, so and so gave that to me as a reason to keep it. They've said, oh, yeah, I play with it, or, oh, yeah, I really like that. But they've never said, oh, I can't get rid of that because Lolly gave this to me. So I think just having those regular conversations with them, giving them the language to articulate it. And if there's ever something that they're on the fence about, I'll say, okay, why don't you go play with this right now and tell me what you think? Like, do you enjoy playing with it? And I make them play with it. And 9 times out of 10, they'll come back and be like, oh, yeah, that was fun. Or I didn't really like this. We can pass it on. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I love that because normally when I do that with my youngest, he's like, "Well, I don't want to play with it right now." And so I have to be like, "No, you have to play with it right now." But yeah,
Yeah.
I have noticed that also like they haven't really said, "Oh, because so and so gave it to me." The only exception to that is they have this little treasure box, which is their little shoe box, and then they have to make decisions. This is all the junky stuff that they get from birthdays and all the other things, but it's like, the size of a small shoebox. And so when they are making their decisions and going through that, a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, well, my friend gave this to me." And so they'll sometimes want to keep it because they got it from a friend, but that means they're not keeping the things that don't have that kind of connection for them. So that's okay because we're still staying within the boundary. So that's been really helpful. So I would love it if you could tell us all the ways people can connect with you and tell them how they can get the consumable guide. And then you mentioned an experience guide. So any of the guides, any of the things, tell us how people can learn more.
Yeah. And I know we're going to be launching this after Christmas. which might not seem like a good time to do it, but I think it's a better time to do it because it gives you time to kind of like you are at this wall of, okay, that did not go well. I do not like how I feel in my house right now. I feel overwhelmed. I feel stressed. It gives you just, and I mean, for me, birthday season is a season right after Christmas. So it kind of all, it comes, it just rolls throughout the year, right? And so the I last year I did the experiential guide, and honestly a lot of the conversations of how do I talk to my in-laws about this, how do I talk to my kids about this, how do I make the unwrapping process still magical but really conscientious about what we're bringing into our home. So I a lot of stuff with that, and then just lots of ideas along with, okay, if you're going to gift this, try wrapping this for them to unwrap. So just I give lots of different like things for that. And then the one that I just launched, the consumable gift giving guide, is really about, okay, what is consumable? Why is it important? And then, of course, just the mindsets of 20 million toys versus one gift that really is loved and used, like the foosball table. And so just kind of talking through that because I found, yeah, we know what a consumable gift is, but yet we don't do it because there's these mindsets and beliefs about what is a good gift or what makes us a good gift giver that keep us and hold us back. And so that guide just helps walk you through that. And the goal is that those things in the guides, if you choose to get them, they go with you throughout your life. It doesn't just impact you this one gift giving season. It's really this mindset that you're creating throughout your life, throughout your kids' life, that goes with you about what gifts mean and what makes them meaningful and how you want to live in your home. But if you want to connect, and you can send me DMs, I'll send you anything you need. You can find me on my website. It's just KhrystyneJaspers.com. It's just Khrystyne Jaspers again on IG. And then I also have a Substack if you want to join my email community and have more help with just small space mindset. I do write on Substack as well.
Wonderful. Okay, well, those guides sound amazing, and I will link to everything in the show notes for the listeners. So, Khrystyne, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was just such a delight talking with you.
It was so nice. Thanks, Emily.
Hey, Mama, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, could you please share this episode with another mom who is feeling overwhelmed? Also, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a 5-star written review wherever you listen to your podcast. Finally, if you would like more support, come on over to our free Facebook group, tinyurl.com/moms overcoming overwhelm. Can't wait to connect with you soon.